Circumcised people of Reddit, what's your stance on the practice? Would you prefer to be uncut? Sound logic here. I had it done as an adult for medical reasons. The pain once the anesthetic wore off has given me a very negative opinion of people that do it to toddlers that can't consent. There is also evidence that it is correlated to increased probability of SIDS. If someone wants it done for religious reasons or whatever else, then that's a decision that person can make when he is an adult. Medically needing circumcisions has tended to run in my family, so debating whether or not to have my son circumcised was something I agonized over. In the end, I decided to have it done based on my father-in-law's recounting of how traumatic keeping his foreskin too far into adulthood, having issues was for him. My dad made the same decision, and I'm thankful I didn't have to do it later in life. I'm uncircumcised, but I have the exact attitude as you do. Why waste time wondering what most dudes, I believe most guys are circumcised anyway, feel when it's not something I am experiencing? I'm happy with my penis just the way it is, even if it looks like an earthworm, lol. Edit. So I guess most aren't. Sorry, I'm a stupid American. Good choice. All the guys on here might be okay with it because they've never known different, but it is completely unnecessary except in rare medical circumstances of otherwise untreatable phimosis, and is actually removing a lot of protective tissue from the glands. For the guys with paraphimosis, look into treatment with corticosteroid cream and gradual massaging first. Most phimosis can be treated non-surgically. I feel exactly the same. I was circumcised and I don't have an issue with it or hold my parents in contempt for it, but I'd rather not make that choice for my kid. I haven't seen enough evidence to prove to me that it's a necessary procedure. I've also told SOs that I'd rather wait to get our kids' ears pierced until they decided they want it as well, but at least that's not permanent. I'd rather they had autonomy on matters like that. I've had this conversation with my partner and he says that being circumcised later on in life is traumatizing. He got it done when he was around 8, and that S circumcised penis looks better and JS more hygienic. I completely disagree because it is an irreversible medical procedure that I believe our future son should only get if they are at an age where they can give informed consent. But I'm not sure if I even get to have a say because my partner has actually experienced circumcision before and he probably knows better. So my partner suffers from relatively bad phimosis himself and he's on the fence about getting a circumcision done to treat it. What would you say was the biggest benefit for you yourself? I'm in no way trying to convince him, his body, his choice. But I know he's really struggling with it, and with how much negativity is surrounding the subject, I'd love to see some opinions of those that had it done who were in a similar boat as him and came away from it with a positive result. Edit. Thanks everyone for all the replies. I did not expect this to blow up as much as it did overnight. Instead of attempting to reply to everyone, I'll just do a quick edit. For the people saying to try stretching, this was recommended to him at a younger age. He's in his 30s now, and it had only helped him very marginally. This is also the sole reason we are considering surgery at this point. We don't live in the States, thankfully, but Western Europe, and our doctors are generally speaking not biased in favor of circumcision unless it is medically required. Regretting it isn't something he's worried about, more so the recovery period, so I would like to extra thank all of you that went into detail on that. Another me too. Had it done when I was 21-ish, early 40s now, and man was I fucked up about it beforehand. Grew up in a small town, where so far as I could tell through footy change rooms etc., circumcision was common, dare I say normal. Certainly Dad was. I was surprised to hear it was uncommon in Australia. So, yeah, we're different and broken. Actively mocked for it by mates. Don't ask. But some boys deal with puberty oddly okay. Doctors convinced me to try what they called a lateral release, basically a slit up the side, which TBH kinda made it fold back like some kinda origami flower, but they didn't apostrophe T/couldn't cut it far enough, so it still wouldn't roll back comfortably, even without an erection. Also, it bled like mad. I woke up after a nap in a huge pool of my own blood. And I swear my first thought was damn, I've been murdered in my sleep. I was binging The Sopranos at the time. So, anyway, got the full job done. Overnight, the bandage complete comes of my cock, except it's still held on by the scab on my frenulum. Hurts like crazy if I even twitch. Just strip it of might be legit for band-aids. But just no way. What to do? I'll have a shower or bath, soak it off. So, somehow I managed to get some trackies on, go waddling out with my hand down my pants to try and stop this bloody bandage from moving at all. My housemate's in the shower. She does not want to see this. Plan B. Grab a glass of water, head back into my room. I will never quite be able to describe how surreal it was, seeing myself in my wardrobe mirror, soaking my very bloody cock in a glass of water. But likewise, a few weeks later, after coming out of the doctor's, having been told it was all fine now, still had some internal dissolving stitches that cause lumps until they fully dissolve. That felt so freaking good. Such a weight lifted. I really literally felt lighter. I probably actually skipped for a bit. So, while I wish it hadn't been necessary, given that it was, I'm so glad I got it done. If you made it this far, thanks for reading. Yeah, I had thermosis too and got circumcised around a year ago. It gave me so much more self-confidence when it came to women, and I am now in an amazing relationship. I get why a lot of people are against circumcising children, but I wish my parents got me circumcised when I was a kid just to get it out of the way, but obviously they couldn't know I had thermosis. I just think parents should discuss if they need circumcision with their child when they're legally old enough for sexual relationships and give the child the choice after explaining the health benefits of it. OMG, are you actually me? I also had bad thermosis and I got circumcised on my 20th birthday, and also the best decision ever. That was 15-ish years ago, so now that I have 2 kids, one of them had thermosis from start and I got him cut at age of 2. The other one probably got a penis from his mom, because he's all okay and he'll stay uncut, so maybe they'll be able to compare them later in life. The thing about foreskins is when everything is fine you can just leave them be, but given things like thermosis, the foreskin isn't like so important. A friend of mine for thermosis real bad, and when the doctor talked to him about circumcising, he said, yeah, take it, I've no emotional attachment to it. As a man who is uncut, I have no interest in being circumcised, but if I had to for any reason, I'd do it straight away. I'd rather go through that pain and be done with any issues than try to deal with it on my own. Same here. At 16, doc said cut it or lose it after an infection due to inability to wash properly. Was awake during surgery. Laser burnt flesh smells kind of sour. Walking around for 2 weeks with my dick out was interesting. After that, I had to walk around with one hand holding my pants. Also waking up in the middle of the night with a purple boner, due to cut off circulation from bandages, was not fun. Also peeing was bad for a while. Split streams. Had to pee in the tub. Me too, though at 35, I always wondered what was wrong with me. Sex was tricky and never quite worked. Turns out I had pretty bad thermosis. I tried stretching exercises for the foreskin, didn't help. Circumcision was a life changer. As others say, it was a bit of a tough road to recovery, but it's so much better now. I am this too, but when my son was born 2 yoctoseconds ago, I learned a lot that made me a strong advocate against routine circumcision for newborns. There's no changing the past, and I still don't long for anything or blame anyone for my sake. We just did things differently years ago. If I had my son 10+ years ago, I likely wouldn't have even done the homework, but I think this is a practice we should phase out. Exactly what I was going to say. I tried hard to have an opinion about it, but I don't really give a fuck. It isn't like they were trying to hurt or abuse us. Circumcision is just one of those practices passed down through time and various cultures. Having an opinion about something like that makes me feel so conservative, for some reason. uncircumcised med student here. I find it interesting how circumcision is easily top 3 in most controversial medical debates. I'll never forget this one class when a professor said infantile male circumcision is genital mutilation and should be phased out. The uproar that ensued. You would have thought the man was advocating for the Holocaust. There's a lot of talk about how it prevents sexual disease, particularly heterosexual HIV contraction. That's actually not entirely true. The data is inconclusive at best and conflicting at worst. It does reduce the risk of IUD in infants, but once children are old enough to bathe themselves, proper hygiene is more than enough to prevent that. My gripe is how society mindlessly treats circumcision as a tradition rather than as an irreversible medical procedure. It's a surgery. There's major risks associated with it, and I've seen the negative outcomes a number of times in my experience. Yet in the US, we have normalized it to the point that uncut men are shamed and ridiculed, or so that med students don't even entertain the idea that maybe this procedure should be automatically performed on every baby boy coming out the womb. All I'm saying is, it's time we revisit why are we doing this procedure, and we should treat it as a conversation to be had with our doctors, rather than treat it as I don't know, foreskin looks weird. Well said. I'm a GP, and the two main reasons I see parents opt for infantile circumcision, outside of religious reasons, is either for hygiene. You accurately pointed out the pitfalls of this argument, or like father, like son. My previous colleague used to perform them, and as part of the consent discussion would tell parents that it's basically a cosmetic procedure. I would say most still went ahead with it because of their strong beliefs on what is still quite a polarizing issue. I was nearly today years old when I discovered that phimosis of the clitoris is a thing, along with analogs of most penis-related disorders. In retrospect, it was a real duh moment. The sad thing is, gynecologists mostly just pretend they didn't notice it if there's something wrong. Because you have abnormal genitals and sex is probably less pleasurable for you is difficult conversation. The only reason it's popular in the US anyway is because John Kellogg was an insane asexual religious nut who thought mutilating children would prevent jerking off. If he thought cutting off boys' ears stopped them from masturbating, he'd have popularized that too. He invented cornflakes specifically to try and prevent people from having sex. This is like people thinking it's controversial to say bloodletting is bad. Best comment here op. My dad was circumcised as a teen because of phimosis. You'd think he'd pass that knowledge of prevention on to me. He didn't, and so I was given some steroid creams and not shown how to do any stretching exercises, or prior to that my parents gave me no advice on how to pull it back when peeing or anything. I'm gay and find it is always harder with gay men cause we see, use and feel uncut men, and it mentally fucks you up knowing how amazing a penis's true functionality is, so superior and perfect in its design when soft for protection and hard for pleasure. Plus, the procedure is so drastically different to each individual person who is cut. I was left with hardly any inner skin, so I have buried penis and erections are tight. It's honestly so sad. And this is because there isn't enough education for boys, and too many dickheads being like I had it done as baby and I'm fine dude, you were sexually mutilated. Save the next generation and stop this shit with education, prevention and protesting. I hope anyone who reads this understands how dramatic of an effect it can have on certain men and guys who shrug it off. Power to you, but it really didn't make me feel good physically or mentally, and it held me back. Honestly, I agree with your professor there. There is no reason to hold on to something this archaic when you can easily keep it clean with proper hygiene. I find it disgusting that parents would decide to do that to their kid before the kid can have an actual word in the matter. If anything, they should wait until the child is old enough to reasonably make a decision whether or not it wants to be circumcised. You can always get yourself circumcised, but once circumcised you can't go back. In Denmark we ban female genital mutilation, but won't do the same to male genital mutilation for children under the age of 18. I believe it's something like 80% of the Danish population who is for a ban on genital mutilation of children, but the politicians are overwhelmingly against the ban. It's insane to see the mental gymnastics to try and defend their stance, though most refuse to comment on it and then simply vote against the ban. The fucking cowards. In reality, it's because they're afraid of retaliation from Israel and the US. If it had only been Muslims who did it, the Danish far-right wing would have been all for it, in their populistic craze, like they were for banning female genital mutilation. But since Jews also do it, it's an easy virtue signal to go, look, we're not Nazis in disguise. Promise, let adults get it done. But don't cut children's genitals outside of medically necessary procedures. It's so fucking simple it hurts, not as much as getting your dick forcefully cut into, but close? I think part of it is that most circumcised people got it done when they were a baby, and never really thought about it, never really had it be an issue, etc. And when people say genital mutilation they think things like FGM, where it is extremely detrimental to the people it's performed on in a way that male circumcision isn't if done properly. There's some academic evidence it reduces the chance of STDs, although the studies are debated and in any case that reduction isn't particularly large. There's also some academic evidence it reduces penile sensitivity, although those studies are also debated and the reduction is not particularly large there either. I certainly agree it shouldn't be the presumed default and it should be a conversation with one's doctors, though. I'd like to be uncut. Don't know if it's any different or not, but my body obviously thought it was a good idea to have a foreskin. That's a good enough reason for me. My parents didn't have any special reason to have me circumcised, it's what people did at the time. I don't resent them for the choice, but I did not have my son circumcised. His body, his choice. I don't have any special opinion on what should or shouldn't be allowed, so far as it goes. I'm just glad the discussion is happening and people are thinking before they just do it. So I had mine done when I was 21, and was sexually active before and after. So biggest differences I found were the following. Before the operation, I was way more sensitive down there and would ejaculate really easily. Afterwards I seemed to have lost that sensitivity and could last a lot longer, but still felt good. It's a lot cleaner. Before, if I got lazy or didn't clean properly it would get icky. Now it's really quick and simple. So I had pain when I would pull back the foreskin and during sex. Hence why I got it removed. Now I'm completely pain-free, but I have to admit the loss of feeling down there was a bit disappointing. Overall it was positive for me. It's barbaric. There are so many nerve endings there it's crazy. There are specialized receptor cells there that don't exist anywhere else. It's thought they are intended to assist the neurochemical reactions that help with pair bonding. It all got started from the asshole who invented cornflakes. He thought if you cut off the foreskin then you wouldn't masturbate, and so you wouldn't go to hell. Fuck that. Circumcised men obviously still masturbate with abandon, so why the fuck are we still doing this? Like, fucking why? Genital mutilation is just wrong. It's wrong to do to girls and it's wrong to do to boys, period. This practice should end. I'm making it end in my family. My son is intact, he will be raised to ensure his son is intact. Yes, there are legit medical reasons to have it done, but it's not common, and none of them apply to a baby. The amount of people that think it's so much extra work to clean foreskin is really astounding. Same with the amount of people that don't think they produce smegma because they are cut. The smegma just doesn't have a place to build up and sit, so it gets rubbed off onto underwear. Even women get smegma in their fold, penis, vagina. Cut or uncut, wash your fucking junk and your ass while you're at it. I'm a female BTW and think that routine infant circumcision is barbaric. I am circumcised, but my wife and I decided not to get our son circumcised. They didn't do it in the hospital, so we made an appointment to get it done at a doctor's office. While we were in the lobby waiting, we heard this baby screaming his head off and then saw parents walk out with their kid and they looked horrified. I turned to my wife and said we are not doing this and she agreed. The receptionist said she had not seen anyone cancel an appointment in all the years she has been there. I really think this is an antiquated and archaic practice that is based on religion, although, I know it was made popular in America by Kellogg, who was really a nut and made it popular to thwart masturbation lol, and has no medical benefit. This is the only real answer. People are automatically assuming they are talking about male circumcision because of how normalized it is in the US, but everyone is completely glossing over the fact that female circumcision exists in quite a lot of the world. If you look up male circumcision, it comes up as that specifically, but if you look up female circumcision, for some reason it suddenly turns into female genital mutilation. It should be considered mutilation regardless of gender and should only be done if the person specifically chooses to have it done to themselves. And even then, it shouldn't be something done just for looks or because you don't have good hygiene. We don't go to the doctor and ask them to remove our legs or arms because we think it'd look better or we think they are too much trouble to keep clean. Bottom line is, we shouldn't be cutting chunks off of children's genitals. It's fucked up.